John Herron is well known to the informer, and Hassan Hamka isn't. But both men share a lot in common, and both are sharing identical paths of pain and grief of loss experienced through the murder and disappearance of loved ones. John lost his daughter Courtney, and Hassan Hamka through the disappearance of his sister Maryam, both women victims of violent attackers. And it seems the Victoria criminal justice system has learned nothing from the violent attacks on women like Jill Magher back in 2012 and continues to do nothing to not only change to protect women, but it sees it acceptable to afford violent attackers more rights than victims. And joining us today to talk about the continuing failures of Victoria's criminal justice system and the people in charge and what they feel needs to be done to change and improve it are John Herron and Hassan Hamka, two men with almost identical stories. And now John, a lawyer, has taken on representing the Hamka family in the disappearance of Maryam. Welcome, gentlemen.
Welcome. Thanks, Michael.
Thank you.
Firstly, Hassan, so sorry for your loss, and John, as always, my thoughts are with you and Courtney.
Thank you, mate.
John, the victims of crime under Fiona McCormack, it just seems like it's not fit for purpose. What would you say?
In a nutshell, completely dysfunctional. Just to clarify, Fiona McCormack is the commissioner of victims of crime, and then there's the actual victims of crime body, which is governed by the Magistrates Court. So when victims have a claim to make, they actually make it to the court. There is a private process where you engage a lawyer, or you can do it yourself. Whatever the Victims of Crime Commission or Commissioner does, myself and other victims have absolutely no idea.
Now, John, you've been a staunch advocate and a solicitor working in the system. How easy is it for you, with your experience and your level of knowledge, to actually navigate the system?
It's very difficult. At one stage, my law office used to process claims, but the administration is completely dysfunctional. I was speaking to a psychiatrist last night about the length it takes to process claims. For them, could be 12 months. Some cases go for a minimum 6 months, but I've come across victims of crime applications for 4 or 5 years. So there's an uncertainty, but a big uncertainty about what's available. So it's not clearly mapped out. So initially, when you lose your loved one, you really need assistance, particularly in that the space of counselling, etc. But it's not fully explained, and even engaging them is a very difficult process. So for me, it's even baffling.
Now, Hassan, you've recently and sadly gone through this system. How hard has it been for you to actually get any answers from the victims of crime, and what's available for those that are left behind?
Well, all they did, honestly, was give me 3 sessions with a counsellor, and I asked to see someone personally, and they couldn't even do that. And that's all I've received from them. I have never heard anything since. So it's been a while, and they don't contact me anymore. It's been months and months. They just don't. Yeah, they're just trying to, they don't want nothing to do with it. To be honest, that's how I feel.
Now, the matters with your sister is still before the courts. Has there been any assistance with that, any guidance of what to expect coming up to the court process?
No, not whatsoever. The only assistance we've had is through John. That's all.
Now, John, we have caseworkers in the NDIS who go, right, here's a client with specific needs, I'm going to guide them. We have independent children's lawyer in the court to represent them. Why don't we have somebody that gives voice and representation to those left behind and those victims of violent crime in this system?
It's a good question. So there was a proposal by Tanya Maxwell from the Justice Party, and it had it had legs where it would engage lawyers and or survivors to help victims through the process. But the government basically panned that idea and as a solution allocated some more to legal aid. But the problem in negotiating the system is actually the system itself and the operatives working in there. So I'm assisting Hassan and the family because they've not been fully explained of how the legal process works at the very basic level, because the people advising them, particularly from the OPP, have their own vested interest in running a case. So they're at odds. So you've got all the issues with the perpetrators explaining that, but then the process is not explained to them. The other leg of that is that the police have a lingering presence there, but as soon as they hand over the initial brief to the Office of Public Prosecution, their job is done. And the follow-up, I think, as the son's alluding to, is non-existent. Whether they turn up, the police sometimes turn up to meetings, sometimes don't. Hassan might be able to tell you a bit more with his interaction.
Hassan,
Yeah, well, I'm still waiting. It's been about 4 months. It's been about 4 months. I'm still waiting for one of the police officers to come and take my statement. So just tells you how much they really care about the case, yeah? Now, 4 months and he still hasn't came. He's made 2 meetings with me, cancelled both of them, and he still hasn't came. And it's been 4 months. He doesn't contact me anymore or nothing.
And the 3 sessions with a counsellor for the loss of your sister, when I just can't imagine that has any impact whatsoever on the struggles going forward from this. There's no outcome there.
It does nothing, mate. It does nothing at all. It hasn't helped. It literally has not helped one bit. I still feel the same thing. So I still feel the same hurt, It's not doing anything. It's not helping me at all.
Now, John, as we discussed earlier, we've got the tail wagging the dog here. While we understand and accept and realise the importance of trying to stop recidivism, so making sure that these people don't come out to commit the crimes again, so there are processes and programs in place to try and actually reform them, but there's no concurrent or effort for the victims here. So, they can have drug and alcohol, medical, psychiatric, reintegration programs with education, support with housing, and yet victims are left with what?
Yes, you've said it in a nutshell. Look, even yesterday I tried to get further counselling for my son who's really struggling, and I was told, no, can't engage anyone, there's no one available, that type of thing. But you went through the list of what's available to perpetrators when they're released. We all agree that they need treatment for recidivism, hopefully not to reoffend. But what's missing here is that it's a slap in the face to victims completely. Everyone involved in the criminal justice system, when they're a victim, they feel like we're absolutely last. And it's all about the perpetrator from the moment that they take the life of your loved one.
Even for some of the less...
Exactly right.
Yeah, even some of the lesser ones, I can't imagine being the victim of an aggravated burglary and waking up with 3 or 4 people in my home and never getting a good night's sleep again in my own bed, in my own home, without the horrific circumstances that both of you guys are in. And yet it's just gobsmacking, Hassan, that 3 counselling sessions. So on one hand, it's, there's a need for psychological support, counselling support, but
Definitely.
But 3 sessions, that should see it through.
Yeah, I know. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. So, John,
it's ridiculous. It's a joke. I've never seen anything like our failed justice system this past year. That's when I realised how much of a failure our justice system is.
John, what needs to change? And I know, as we spoke earlier, we had a great initial victims of crime commissioner in Greg Davies, really made some great recommendations. I don't think any of them have been acted upon, but at the moment it falls with magistrates and the courts rather than an administrative system like they have in New South Wales. In New South Wales, the average time from start to finish was 26 days. In Victoria, this was in 2019 when I referenced the report, was nearly 10 months.
That's right. That's a tale of two cities in doing that. But look, Victoria was first off the mark in introducing that Victims of Crime Commission in the process, and it was a really, really good system. But like everything else, the administration can't run a bar. So the services just gradually slipped. And as I said to you earlier, let's say that you're a victim in that situation. Where do you go with help? So you might look at the website. So the New South Wales website details exactly what's available and what sort of financial assistance is there. The Victorian one is absolutely shrouded in mystery. Right? As I said earlier, could be 6 months, could be 3 or 4 years. And then there's a dark side of it. When I process claims, I actually saw in Victoria that there were occasions where crimes were committed to access the cash payments, and even crimes invented to access cash payments. And part of the trigger for that is there's this unknown quantum of services and financial assistance available. So when you've got a cloud of that, you're going to attract a dark element to it. So that taints and takes away from the Commission's ability to assist victims.
So what would you like to see changed here, John?
Instead of reinventing the wheel, we just really have to adopt the New South Wales model. They have that administration in place, and it's regimented. And even for the fact of the unknown counselling, the numbers of sessions you get, as Hassan said, 3. Again, I can't get any from my son, that type of thing. It's very easily documented in New South Wales, and they have a separate body running that. So they're meshing it up with the magistrates court, in my view. There are some always very well-intentioned magistrates in this space, without a doubt. But it's the apparatus they've got to operate with is missing. The legislation is missing. And then they've got a commissioner in Victoria that has an unknown role, put it that way. So you've just got this, it's hard to say, but it's just like a real debacle in the space, frankly. So yeah, the New South Wales model would be the one to adopt.
John, I also noticed that even in the remand centre, there's basically an orientation program to make sure that the prisoner settles in okay within the system. And yet again, that's what we're saying. This isn't about not having these programs for the offenders, because again, that recidivism, we don't want these people to carry on and come out and do it again. But we just need an equal focus and a better emphasis on those left behind, or those survivors of these violent attacks, don't we?
Yes, look, you may not know in the system, so most of those programs are voluntary. So even drug and alcohol assistance inside prisons is voluntary. So they have some of the courses I know working in that space might have 60% attendance. So my daughter's killer, Hammond, for example, he flatly refused to have any psychiatric or assistance or mental health assistance. So when he got out in the street, he had nothing. So it might look good, and there's a lot of nice documentation, but it may not come to pass anyway.
And you're currently suing the government with regards to releasing your daughter's killer, aren't you, John?
That's right. So it's a fact where corrections just discharged with, as I said earlier, that he had no treatment at all inside prison when he was in there for a very light sentence of 4 months after attacking a woman. But my understanding that when he was released, he was just wandering around barefoot around the CBD in Melbourne, unfortunately, waiting to kill someone. And in the end, he was successful at that.
Hassan, what would you like to see in your case?
Well, for one, I want the magistrate magistrates to stop letting people out on bail to commit murder. And I want them to be held accountable for the murders that have happened because of them. That's what I really want to happen.
All right, well, we're going to wind it up there. And again, to both of you gentlemen, my heart goes out to you, Hassan. I'm so sorry for your loss. And John, as always,
Thank you.
Thanks for your time, and hopefully we can have a government that listens not only to the victims, but to the people of Victoria. This is a no-brainer. We're all living in a state of where we're worried about these violent offenders coming out. We've got home invasions, road rage, murders of innocent women, one-punch coward attacks killing people, and no one is being held properly to account, and no one's being helped afterwards.
Yeah, exactly right.
All right, John, Hassan, thanks so much for your time.
Thanks, Michael.
Thank you. Thank you, mate.